Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of YHB TV, your handmade business television, a weekly series dedicated to helping you navigate all things maker life. It never gets old for me. I will just my fingers until the day I die. I'm Isaac Watson, co-director of Academy of Handmade. We are a supportive community for makers offering programs and community and all kinds of fun stuff for your maker business. With me here is my crafty co-conspirator, Sharon Fain. Most of you know us already, but you know that introduction is useful every time for those newbies that we do get on occasion. So each week in YHB TV, we tackle a topic that we think gets deeper into what's really going on in your business. And this week, we are talking about finding your niche. And we're going to get into it. Say niche. Sharon's going to say niche.
I say it just to bother Isaac, who speaks French, and this bothers him. So I also say LaCroix and not LaCroix.
Oh, I only say LaCroix when I'm trying to be pretentious.
Yeah, exactly. LaCroix. I call it Los Angeles. I don't call it Los Angeles.
Anyway, however you pronounce niche, or another synonym for it, we're going to talk about finding it today. But before we do, there are a couple things that we want to get out of the way. First of all, we have a poll again this week. So if you click on the polls button below the video, you can answer our question, which is, what is the hardest part for you about figuring out your ideal customer? So we have a couple options in there. If none of those fit, choose other, and then we will ask you later when we review the poll results what your other was, because we always like to know what kinds of other options are out there. My volume's a little low. I can fix that. Before we get into it, I'm going to move this up closer to me too. There. How's that, Amanda? I can actually hear myself a little bit better too. See, now the video shows my podcasting microphone, which is super sexy. But yes, okay, great. We will do that going forward. Okay, so again, before we get into it, we do want to let you know that this episode of YHB TV is brought to you by our Jumpstart Your Handmade Business program. Now, Sharon and I have met thousands of makers over the years, and in all the work that we've done with them, we've noticed that there tends to be one major thing that makes it hard to make progress, and that is getting clarity and defining your roadmap to success. So we created Jumpstart to help you do exactly that. Jumpstart is a self-guided program. There's a self-guided version of it, I should say, that is always available, that helps you understand the big picture of your business by setting goals, knowing your numbers, and honing in on the right resources for the right solution for your business. So if you want to learn more about that program, you can click on the green Jumpstart button below the video and get all the deets. I haven't been, so we were off last week for the holiday, and then I wasn't here the week before because I was working a big event, my big event of the summer, which is the World Domination Summit, which was awesome. But Sharon, how have you been?
I've been good. Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's been really hot. Everyone's hot right now in the chat. My own feed or whatever watching this might feel slow because I feel like the internet is dragging hard in this heat. And I think somebody else also mentioned in the chat that they cannot see Isaac, and you can go ahead and try to refresh your screen, but that is probably your internet dragging, and the internet will just cut one of the videos sometimes.
That's true. Crowdcast will always favor audio.
Yeah, and Isaac, unfortunately, was the one who was cut. So I'm sorry you didn't get to see his beautiful face and his nice haircut.
Thank you. And I will say that my internet connection is stellar. But that doesn't, that isn't 100%. Am I getting pretentious again? Oh no.
Niche, LaCroix. Anyways, but often if something is not on here, it is neither of us's fault. It is probably 90% of the time your own computer system, just internet dragging in some way, and it will just randomly cut the video sometimes. So
for sure. But a browser refresh does tend to help most issues, unless it's just a super slow connection, which it looks like it did in the case of.
And the live version is always like that, but the recording will usually have both of us. That is a weird thing. So
that's true.
It's recording us in a different way, I guess. Anyways, so it's been hot and that's been my life. And air conditioning. That's how we've been, and takeout. That's how we've been trying to stay cool. So
what's your takeout of choice these days?
We are usually Thai food people. And also there's an Indian place that also has a really good breakfast pizza nearby. So Indian and breakfast pizza is the other go-to.
I think you just blew my mind, Sharon.
I know.
Breakfast pizza.
I know, and it's at this Indian place too. I was like, I don't understand how these things go together, but I guess they do. So
does that mean that it's served on like a big thing of naan as the crust?
No, it's a pizza.
Oh, wow.
It's a pizza. But I'm guessing, I mean, I think naan dough is probably very similar to pizza dough, so I'm sure that's how that worked in there. But yeah, no, it's a regular pizza. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's talk about finding your niche.
Speaking of niches, right? I feel like breakfast pizza from an Indian place is pretty niche.
I think you just stumbled your way into a metaphor.
Yeah, right? We just went into that. So, yeah, I think so. I feel like we should explain it a little bit more, because niche is obviously related to your target customer. And if that's not clear, it's because, the scope of your business and what kind of products you offer, that obviously narrows down your customer to and your target customer, right? And as you kind of start to narrow down what you want your business to be about, in that process, you're also narrowing down who could potentially be your customer. So sometimes you wind up with a customer that you do not like, right? Sometimes you hate the person who winds up being your ideal customer. And the way to change that is obviously to then change your niche a little. You have to change what your product is and how to attract them. So usually when people don't like their customer, it's usually because their customer is a cheap customer, which means your product is probably occupying a space that is not luxury or, something else that would attract a person who could pay more. So, and obviously price is part of an indicator of that. But anywho, those are how those two things are related. And that is how we got to the poll about asking you about what is the toughest part for you to find your customer. So
exactly.
What do you want to kick us off, Isaac, on the list here?
Yes.
I think we've assembled
as one of the like top things that it is important to understand. And I feel like anybody who's been a maker for a couple of years probably knows this, but because maker businesses are so personal, I don't think it's worth, I think it's worth reiterating over and over again. I walked into that the wrong way. But what I'm trying to say is that it is okay for people to not like you or your products.
Yes.
You cannot sell to everyone all the time and make everyone in the world happy with what you do. That's true. There's just no long or short around it. And I think that the sooner you can embrace that, especially as a new maker, the sooner you will be able to start to hone in on who your ideal customer actually is and what your niche is. And identifying that really helps you. I think that's probably the single biggest way that you can gain clarity around your business and the purpose for your business. That is it's just going to set you up for success. It's going to be the best way that you can let go of all the haters, because it'll help you learn to roll the criticism off your back, because those aren't your customers. And it'll help you embrace the people who are your customers and dive into the niche that you set out for yourself, which is going to help you market easier. It's going to help you develop products easier, to have that kind of understanding of what you're putting together.
Yeah. And when you know the niche you're occupying, then not only can you stop listening to the people who aren't really your target customer, and even, so this is another thing, right? Like sometimes these people will have bought from you. And so people are like, oh, well, is this my customer? And no, they're not your target customer. There are people that will buy things from you that, you know, aren't the people that are your core audience. So it's fine that they do, but when they give you advice about things, those are probably the people you want to ignore. And the people you want to listen to are your target audience. So finding your niche helps you to listen to the people that matter, who can actually help you improve your product and make it better, because you're ultimately making and creating and designing for them.
Exactly. I was trying to dig up a resource that I came across the other day, but I'm not finding it yet, so I'll work on that.
So like Coca-Cola, right, has a target audience, but literally everyone drinks Coca-Cola, right? Like, but you don't see a Coca-Cola commercial that's just all baby boomers and really old people, you know, because they have this niche of, you know, usually they're youthful, and sometimes they will appeal through like a sentimental thing that might skew a little bit older, but in general, they are not trying to be associated, you know, it's not like, you know, an older person product per se, but older people drink it, I guess.
Mm-hmm. And I've even noticed in the case of Coke that their marketing, like their baseline marketing tends to appeal to the younger generation. So it's the, like, you know, 25 to 35 market, right? But then you'll see that around the holidays, and they start doing all the advertising that actually appeals to all generations. That's when they show, like, you know, the grandma sharing a Coke with her granddaughter, and, you know, two lovers sharing a Coke, and like a dad and a daughter, or what, you know, like they'll do that cross-generational stuff to kind of get that family feel good, friends and everything's lovely vibe. But that's a seasonal thing. That's not the way that they normally market their products.
Yeah, and the reason why they are marketing to a younger generation too is because that goes back to branding and understanding consumer choice and habits. So when you are in your 20s, right, you're starting to actually purchase things on your own more so, right? And so they want to be the cola that you purchase on your own, and then they become the cola for life, right? And that's a habit that you now have. Whereas, you know, that doesn't mean that, you know, once you're older, they just don't care about you, but they're really focused on this one demographic, because that is the part where that is going to make them the most money. And that is how you guys have to think about this too. Who are the people that are going to make me the most money? Who are going to be my fans? Who are going to talk about me? Who is going to, you know, come back to me again and again? And that is your target, you know, audience. And just because some rando person bought from you doesn't mean, and that makes them your customer, it doesn't make them your target customer. So I wanted to mention on the point of it's okay for people not to like you. I was on the road yesterday. I had to go up to Seattle and back, and I was listening to a bunch of podcasts, catching up. And I listened.
one of my favorite podcasts to listen to is Proof to Product by Katie Hunt. She does a fantastic job with that. But she actually had a 2-episode back-to-back thing that I highly recommend on this subject if you are concerned about, or if you're feeling like maybe your target customer is too broad, or you are trying to hone in on things. It's episodes 63 and 64. Episode 63 is with Mary Bruno from Bruno Press. And then 64 is a mini episode follow-up that she did on that, which talks a little bit about some of the things that she talked about with Mary, and in particular about not pleasing everybody. And so I highly recommend that if you feel like maybe you need some refinement, or you don't quite feel comfortable, I wouldn't say ditching customers, but getting to a point where you can feel like you can exclude them from your targeting kind of thing. I would definitely go and check that out.
It gets hard to ignore people's opinions when, like, you feel like, oh, well, they bought from me, they should be entitled to have opinions about my stuff. You just sometimes shouldn't.
Yeah.
It's very hard to ignore that and to reject that and to, say, I only care about these people. It feels both simultaneously mean and weirdly exclusive, and,
Yeah, exactly. So on that note, especially if you're starting out or if you're introducing some new products, your ideal customer is going to be a hypothesis in a lot of ways until you can actually observe who is buying from you and whether or not that's the right person to be buying from you. So you're going to go into your business saying, you know what, I think I'm marketing to XYZ. And this person is, has these interests and is buying products for these reasons. And this is why they find my work to be interesting. And as you sell, you are going to observe and test that hypothesis to see if you are correct, or if that needs to be tweaked and adjusted to better reflect who's actually buying from you. And then to determine, okay, are these people actually buying from me? Are they the ones that are going to sustain me in the long run? And are they my actual target?
And I think as you're testing this hypothesis, you're going to want to pay attention to the people that you want to be your target audience too. So like when you're in that early stage, like we mentioned, you can kind of choose at some level who you want to be your person. Obviously, what you make will attract a certain kind of person just naturally, but you can shift away and shift towards people in different groups. And, if you feel like you could, well, I think there's two ways of looking at it. If you more easily identify with a certain group and feel like you can meet their needs better and you want to start moving your stuff towards them, then I think, that's really valid. But I think another thing too to think about is, bluntly, what groups can also make me the most money? Who is underserved, by this? And if you find that your product keeps going and makes you compete head to head with somebody else and find and go to an overserved customer that lots of products are already filling that niche, then figure out, okay, I keep, in your hypothesis, you were like, oh, I keep, winding up the customer I want is the one who still is not happy with it, but this other customer is. So if you're doing that, keep testing to make it better for that person, if you need to as well too. So as you're sort of like finding your niche, there's a combination of product tweaking and audience tweaking that you're doing. For sure.
And as you go through and you start to observe these things, or as you've been observing these things, it's helpful to look for overlaps and characteristics to be, to use that to inform the descriptions of who likes or dislikes your product and why, and what else they like and dislike, to find that common ground. We were working with somebody in our mastermind program recently who was having trouble defining her target market. And we were trying to to help her work through identifying, okay, if you have your products selling in this particular location, what are the common traits? If like maybe there's a whole age spread, a demographic isn't purely an age group. It's not just going to be 25 to 35 or 40 to 62. Oftentimes demographics blur lines and cross over typical marketing demographics, especially with a handmade business. So you need to identify what are the commonalities, where are they drawing their inspirations from, what are their reasons for buying? Are these gift purchases? Are they for themselves? Are they special occasions? Are they splurges or luxury purchases? All those kinds of things, those common threads can help you determine who your target audience actually is and help you niche into what product is best going to serve that target audience.
Totally. And I think when you're looking at that too, the reason why you want, there's definitely blurry edges, like Isaac said. But one of the reasons why you wind up wanting to focus on a target audience. So if you're like, okay, if you look at all of your customers and you're like, most of them live on the West Coast or something, this helps you when you go to do advertising on Facebook and Google and things like this, because they want specific numbers and you pay more money, the more broad you get. When you try to be everything to everyone on there. So you can get better results, and you can even within that start to say, so let's say you had, just pulling this out, 60 customers who came from, the West Coast, and you had 40 customers who came from the East Coast. How to spend your money, and you want to make it as, fruitful as possible. And instead of just targeting the entire country, basically at that point, you can say, actually, even though it's on the West Coast, I'm based on the East Coast and I want to build up my East Coast, person. So you can add from there. So just these are all things within your control of who your niches are too. And if it seems like your niche keeps going this other way, then you can bring it back. But it's always good to explore, maybe why it is the West Coast gravitating to my stuff, or however it goes. So, but yes, the narrowing down, when you can get into an age range of about 10 years, that is golden on Facebook ads versus 20. So honing it in is huge.
Yeah. So for your niche, I think it's also important, like, it's great if you can say with confidence that I make, office products for 25-year-old female graphic designers who live in Southern California. Knowing that is great, but you have to be careful that you're not going too niche or too targeted with your customer, because the finer you get on who you're marketing to and who you're developing your products for, the smaller the market there is. And there are two ways that you can counteract that. One is to develop a product spread that appeals to a broader group, or to back it up and to say, okay, well, let's focus on like millennials who like designy things instead of actual designers or something like that. The other thing is there's potentially an opportunity to become a premium product. If you're going hyper niche, then that usually means that you have to compensate for that with your pricing in order to attract enough sales. But your product has to fit with that pricing, right? You can't charge a premium price for a low grade product, a low quality product, just because you're trying to get into a super target niche. So, making sure that you're not drilling down too far and that you're keeping some things open to adaptation too, because your niche and your target demographic is going to shift over time, especially as you introduce new products. I think that's another important thing to keep in mind.
Yeah. I would also say that, when you niche down and you're like, okay, now I only just have this one group that I'm focusing on, in the beginning, especially when you're usually a business that's a product of one. You're like SKU one. It can feel like it's too narrow, and you will have exhausted your niche kind of relatively fast. And that is one reason why you want to have a product line too that, you know, serves your niche in more than just this one very specific way too. So that's why when you're looking at your customer profile, you want to look and see like, okay, you know, is this too niche? And like, can I sell more than just this one thing to this person, you know, or can I charge for extra for this? So, you know, if I'm only limiting my I'm only making things for astronauts. There's not a lot of astronauts in the world, but what if I sell something that's $100,000 that astronauts need? Well, then, you know, that changes the situation pretty dramatically. So I think, you know, you have to sort of like look at how you will eventually exhaust your niche at a certain level, and how to sort of replenish that, and if there's an ability to replenish that.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, so I feel like we've actually been talking a lot about target audience, and I mean, we talked about this a little bit already, but I was realizing that if I can pick on Amanda, because I love picking on Amanda because I know her so well. Amanda mentioned in her intro at the beginning in the chat, she says, so she's from Bread and Badger in Portland, Oregon, and she sandblasts her cute animal portraits onto deluxe drinkware. So that's her niche, and that's something I know she's been developing as she kind of revamps her business this year. Knowing that as her niche, which is also kind of an elevator pitch in a way, helps her identify who her target audience is, right? Because obviously it has to be somebody who's interested in cute animal portraits sandblasted onto deluxe drinkware. So what do we know about that? We know that they drink things, that they need drinkware. Alcohol. They have animals that they love and adore. And they're the type of pet owner who likes to have a portrait of their animal on something. Because so it's not all pet owners, but pet owners who in particular like personalized and portraiture of their animals. And then you add the handmade component to it, the fact that it's sandblasted and that the design is done by hand gives it a custom element. So that helps hone in on that target audience in a way that just saying, oh, well, you know, 35 to 45-year-olds buying gifts for the holidays for their kids or something, that may not serve that. So it really, truly, your niche and your target audience go hand in hand. They inform each other, and they can do a lot to get you on the right track and making the right choices in your marketing and in your product development to be able to be sustainable with your business.
Definitely. Okay, so looking at the poll, which was, what's the hardest part about figuring out your ideal customer? 40% said not having enough information, 10% said not wanting to exclude people, 30% said feeling like your products span multiple types of customers, 10% said retail customers are different from wholesale, and then we have rounding out that with an other vote. So feeling like you don't have enough information, if you've been in business a little bit, you probably have more information than you think, through sales records, through, you know, you can start to understand geography and start to comb through a lot of that stuff. And you'll have, you know, when are people buying? And that can also kind of tell you who they are. You can kind of pretty easily pick up gender, things like that. So there's probably more information than you think you have. If it's because you're new, then it's obviously you just haven't tested the waters. If you have been in business a little bit longer and you don't feel like you have enough information, then you just need to start asking people. There's tons of ways to do this. You know, you can just like put up fun questions that will lead you to some more information. This can be anything from, what blogs do you read? What's your favorite memory? Like, all of these kinds of things can start to develop a picture of somebody. So it doesn't have to be like, hey, everyone, take this poll and let me know what your age group range is. That's not, necessarily what it is. There's a lot of fun ways to figure that stuff out through just, posting that on social media, or, doing something in your newsletter, or even just asking people when you're at shows. You can also decide with people who have already bought from you, email them and say, I would like to have a focus group. And you can just, get people on, some sort of Skype call or, video conference, or just call people one-on-one and say, hey, do you have time to chat? I'll give you whatever, $10 Starbucks gift card or something. And if you usually tell people you're a small business owner, you're just looking to improve your products and, whatever, like asking people, they will usually want to help if you ask it in the right way. So, and obviously the more proactive and personal you are, you'll probably get a smaller group, but you'll get richer information. And when you do things like send out, an email and say, here, take this thing on SurveyMonkey, you'll be entered to win whatever. That will probably get you more information in terms of results, but it will probably get you less detail. So usually what market researchers do is they usually do a mixture of both. They'll do something that is a little bit more fill in, A, B, C, D, pick one, situation. And then they'll usually do another where it's a focus group of some kind or interview customers directly.
Yeah. I was going to echo what somebody said, and you mentioned it, Sharon, but somebody else mentioned in the chat earlier that if you're just starting out, selling in person at craft fairs and markets and things like that is got to be one of the best ways to start identifying your target or your target hypothesis, because you can actually see the people who, you can see how they're dressed, you can see how they behave, you can see who they shop with, you can see, it's a little creepy, but you can see how many credit cards they have in their wallet. You can glean a lot off of seeing somebody shop and purchase from you that you can't get through an Etsy transaction email or, some other kind of method.
Yeah. And you see the clothes they wear, you see the purse they're carrying. You can be an anthropologist and write all of this down in a notebook. And just all of these observations, what's going on. And it doesn't even have to be that necessarily just come by and are interested. That can help you understand better who is just interested in your product and maybe help you define, as you get more information, what was the obstacle to them not, purchasing. There could be a lot. So.
Yeah, for sure. On that note, so G mentioned that he or she has had a hard time with social advertising through Facebook and Instagram that's not selling their items. And Lori echoed that sentiment. I think that plays into what Amanda said and what you just said, Sharon, which is that not everybody is attuned to buying something through a social channel. I think that the type of person who shops pins or shops Instagram posts and things like that is a very small subset of the overall people that could be seeing things. And so it's really about understanding whether or not your target customer is the type of person who would do that, or if they're the kind of person who would be influenced by seeing an ad over time and purchasing it later directly through your website or something like that in a way that you can't necessarily track, because the internet tracks lots of things, but doesn't track that kind of stuff very well.
I would also say that, so this is digging more into advertising though, is when you say something's not converting, they're just not converting to a sale for you. But the great thing about Facebook advertising is how customized it is. And so I would say if you're looking to get sales, you need to go after people who have never heard of you, who have heard of you before, who are what you would call a warm lead. So it's people who are already on your list, people who are already on your social media, and, you know, people who have already bought from you. So those are the people you want to advertise to. If you are just doing a sell to somebody who has never heard of you before, then it is very difficult unless you have a ton of money to spend on a campaign to get any kind of traction with selling. So what you're wanting to do when you're creating a Facebook or Instagram campaign is you're wanting to get followers, and you're wanting to get people to be on your email list. Those are you want them to become fans, because it's going to take, right? They usually say it takes about 7 interactions with a brand before you actually decide to buy from them. Yeah. So they're not going to do that on ad one, right? Ad one, they're curious. They want to get to know you more. You want to get them on your website, reading your blog. You want them hooked in as a fan at some level. And the main way to get sales through Facebook and other ads is to have them come, only be having them shown to people who you already have a relationship with.
Yeah. That's the subject for a whole other episode, though, isn't it?
Yes. Yes, it definitely is.
Well, if anybody else has any questions, feel free to use that Ask a Question button or post it in the chats. We would love to answer some questions. But I think if I can just reiterate the importance of honing in on a niche as a business owner, it is so important. I've learned that myself the hard way. As a freelancer, I have seen makers learn that the hard way. I've worked with makers who think that their product is for everybody, and it's a hard lesson to learn that it's not. That there is definitely a much smaller group of people that your product is intended for. And just like Rachel was saying in the chat, there's your niche your niche can be the same, but your target market may vary depending on location. She was talking about how her products tend to be gift items locally where she is, but further away, they tend to be purchased in a different, I would say probably a more affluent community. They are more personal purchases. So that who you're targeting your marketing toward and who you're trying to appeal to in your product development can shift depending on location and social status and all kinds of different things. But ultimately the niche remains the same in that in Rachel's case, she's making baby products. And I'm drawing a blank on the rest of the actual niche there because I can't remember what she said, but all that to say that there is fungibility in those types of things.
Yeah. So that's kind of like what Amanda said, where she said that when she was doing her target market research, is she recognized that a lot of people liked her work, couldn't afford it. So she had to find an age range income bracket that could purchase things spontaneously. And I think that's key too, right? There is a person who will sometimes buy your product or really be a fan of your product, but because it's handmade and, just cost and all of that, it's going to just be, a little bit out of their reach for a typical purchase. So in those cases, there are people in their lives that, depending on what you make, that will gift those things to them. So you also then have to think that is kind of a target market for you in terms of this person likes your product. So how do I get them that product, right? And the other thing too is, so one of the thoughts on target markets that I love the most is from Megan Allman doing a creative live about this. Is, she has sort of these 3 generations of person that can afford her, who are her target customer. One of them is younger, a young professional, and another one, is sort of a more middle-aged woman who can who has a lot more disposable income. And another is a grandma who, you know, is just really into fun and also has some disposable income. So for the woman who is like, I can, you know, afford $75 earrings, you know, I'm not the woman who can afford, you know, $250 earrings. She creates a product that is, you know, lower priced. It's still her brand. It's still her aesthetic, but it is more attainable for that person. And then it's like a starter item. And then she'll, you know, work her way up into bigger, more extravagant pieces at some point, right? So a lot of times you can think about it that way too. Like there's this one group that is going to be my group that is like, they will buy stuff, no problem. But there's this other group that would buy stuff if it was cheaper. And it's not necessarily about like, how do I lower my prices? But it's like, is there a gateway thing that I can get them in with? You know, how do I get them in? Or how do I make it so that, you know, they're gifted it so that it comes back later. So that's another way to think about that too.
For sure. Was that her Megan's class on how to make a living selling what you make?
She's probably reviewed it, but I really feel like this was her Pinterest class.
Oh.
I don't know.
Pinterest marketing for makers and designers.
She does. Yeah, she does her, you know, ideal customer profile, I think, in more than one of her creative lives, and I don't remember exactly.
Yeah. Well, then I won't put a link in it because I don't know exactly which one it is, but you can find it if you want.
Yes.
All right. Well, we're over time, so we should probably go.
Yeah. No, definitely.
I mean, we could talk about this all day.
Yeah. No. So next week we will be back here talking about, I need to pull this up. Is your current customer actually your target customer? Which we kind of stepped into this week. We
did, but we'll go a little bit deeper into it.
Yeah. We will get more into the strategy of all of that next week. Same time, same place. So in the meantime, we are our Facebook group is Your Handmade Business. If you want to search for it and join if you haven't already. And if you are feeling stuck at all in your business, the Jumpstart program is evergreen and open right now. So.
Yep. All right.
All right.
I hope your air conditioning continues to work, Sharon.
Me too. I'm just hoping there's been blackouts in the city, so we have not been affected by them yet. Hopefully we will continue that trend.
All right. Then I will pull out the yearbook phrase and say, stay cool, Sharon.
Yes. Stay cool, everyone.
Bye.